We swallow magnesium capsules, apply adhesive strips across our mouths, and strap on biometric sensors before turning out the lights. The cultural assumption driving this behavior is that sleep is a metric, a biological number that can be mastered through the right combination of equipment and routine. But clinical researchers at institutions like Brigham and Women's Hospital are documenting a severe side effect to this optimization trend. A 2026 national survey reveals that 32.4% of U.S. adults now utilize digital tools to monitor their rest. Within that tracked demographic, 30.9% score positive for a newly categorized form of sleep anxiety, orthosomnia. Orthosomnia is a psychological paradox. By hyperfixating on daily sleep metrics, users trigger a state of physiological stress that actively prevents them from sleeping. The technology purchased to solve insomnia becomes the exact mechanism that induces it. The Sleepmaxxing movement treats human rest like a fragile piece of hardware that requires constant chemical and physical additions to function. Biologically, sleep is an autonomic rhythm. It is not a performance to be executed, but a transition that must be permitted to happen. Moving away from an infinite list of life hacks, a clinical framework focuses on 3 fundamental neurobiological systems. These systems govern our sleep architecture through pressure, clock, and arousal. When sleep begins to fracture, the solution isn't layering on another unproven supplement. It is identifying which of these 3 specific dials is out of alignment. The first system is Process S, the homeostatic sleep drive. Every waking hour, the brain accumulates adenosine. As levels rise, sleep pressure builds toward a transition. Caffeine interferes by binding to receptors, masking the drive while underlying pressure builds. Conversely, a late nap prematurely clears adenosine. By bedtime, biological pressure is too weak for deep sleep. Spending hours tossing and turning while awake further confuses this homeostatic drive, preventing the brain from establishing a clear sleep-wake contrast. This pressure cannot be manufactured by a pill. It must be earned through sustained wakefulness and physical activity, which is why a consistent wake time remains the most powerful lever for Process S. The second dial is Process C, our endogenous circadian oscillator. This internal 24-hour clock is governed by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which coordinates our systemic physiology based on environmental cues. Morning photons strike specialized retinal cells that signal the brain to suppress melatonin and initiate a cortisol spike, effectively setting the clock for the day. While morning light starts the timer, the evening environment must be carefully managed to allow melatonin to rise again, a requirement that has popularized pre-sleep red light therapy. Because red light has a longer wavelength that barely stimulates retinal sensors, it preserves natural melatonin synthesis. It's a useful tool for maintaining a dim environment, but it possesses no magic sedative properties. The actual sleep phase requires total darkness. Even low-level light penetration through closed eyelids can shift circadian gene expression and increase your sleeping heart rate. Synchronizing this second dial simply requires restoring the evolutionary contrast between bright morning sunlight and pitch-black nights. The final dial is autonomic arousal. This system functions as an absolute override for both the sleep pressure and the circadian clock. When the brain perceives a threat or stressor, the HPA axis triggers a cortisol response, shifting the nervous system into a state of high-alert wakefulness. The obsessive search for perfect sleep initiates this exact stress response. By treating rest as a performance to be graded, users induce cortical hyperarousal at the precise moment they are trying to sleep. True clinical measurement of sleep staging requires polysomnography, which uses brainwave data to determine when you are actually in deep or REM sleep. Consumer wearables attempt to estimate these stages using only movement and heart rate, which leads to frequent inaccuracies and a tendency to underestimate deep, restorative sleep. This creates a cycle of anxiety. A user feels rested, but a flawed wearable score tells them they failed, triggering a cortisol spike that ruins the following night's rest. Applying a measurement-centric attitude to an autonomic bodily function guarantees hyperarousal. You cannot force the brain to relax by judging its performance. These neurobiological principles explain why many viral physical and chemical sleep hacks provide such inconsistent results. Filtering hacks through objective data separates legitimate tools from placebo and physiological risk. Take magnesium L-threonate. While subjective questionnaires show mild benefits, objective studies show negligible changes to sleep architecture, often confounded by other ingredients like lysine. We see a similar pattern with mouth taping, which influencers claim improves blood oxygenation. Anatomical data from 2024 proves that taping lip tissue creates severe asphyxiation hazards, particularly for those with undiagnosed sleep apnea or nasal congestion. Additive hacks often fail because they ignore the fundamental dials, focusing instead on subjective placebo effects or introducing new physiological dangers. When sleep disruption becomes chronic, medical guidelines move past influencer trends and toward behavioral restructuring. In the hierarchy of care, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBT-I, remains the gold standard for treatment. The core of this therapy is stimulus control, based on the principle that the brain forms powerful spatial associations with its environment. Working, scrolling, and monitoring sleep data while in bed trains the nervous system to associate the mattress with high-alert wakefulness and anxiety. Stimulus control breaks this association by requiring you to leave the bed if you aren't asleep within 20 minutes, returning only when the biological sleep drive is undeniable. This intervention works not by adding a new variable, but by removing the psychological and behavioral confusion that keeps the brain alert. There is a clear tension between the additive, exhausting nature of sleepmaxxing and the subtractive nature of neurobiology. Your sleep pressure, circadian clock, and arousal systems are designed to work in harmony when they are left undisturbed. Optimizing rest involves removing late-day caffeine, removing erratic light exposure, and, most importantly, removing the hyperfixation on tracking. Your wearable score is a data point, a broad estimation. It is not a definitive verdict on the quality of your night. Better sleep does not come from doing more. It comes from tuning the dials, trusting your biology, and finally having the courage to do nothing at all.